Welcome to Camp Constitution Radio with your host, Hal Shurtleff. This show is heard on WBCQ The Planet every Monday night at every Tuesday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it repeats every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can also pick up this show on YouTube. Just go to Camp Constitution's YouTube channel, and also Podomatic.com and put in Camp Constitution, and you'll be able to not only get this show, but many of our archive shows over the last several years. It's brought to you by Camp Constitution, which, among other things, runs a week-long family camp. And this year's camp, 2019, will be from July 28th to August 3rd. And one of the featured instructors is the lady that's on the line here, Debbie Bacigalupi. Debbie, how you doing?
Good evening, Hal Shurtleff, or morning, wherever you are listening to this.
Yeah, well, it's evening here, so we're in Boston, and you're in California. So anyway, yeah, we've had a little difficulty making this happen, but this is, I think, the third time you've been on the show. And I want to let you know that the class you gave at last year's camp of August of 2018, you gave an incredible class entitled California Wildfires and Agenda 21-2030. It's got about 38,000 views, and I think about 30,000 views just in the last couple of weeks. So I'm very happy to see lots of people. And some people have been contacting us and saying, hey, how do I get involved? And, we have contacts around the country, whether through different organizations like Tom DeWeese's American Policy Center and others. So we're very happy that we're able to make a connection there. Well, Debbie, you were at the climate change conference. It was COP24, I think it was called, in Poland recently.
Yes, it is the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change conference of the parties, number 24. So it's their 24th event. There will be a 25th event, COP25, in Chile next year. And it'll be the same time. It'll be December, the first couple of weeks in December. And thankfully next year they picked a warmer location than Poland.
Yes, that's right. It's summertime down there, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, Poland was, it's interesting they would pick, first of all, a conference in a cold location like Poland this time of year because it was, freezing temperature the whole time and sub-freezing. And also it's interesting that, for a global warming conference, by the way, and also interesting that they would pick a country, Poland, heavily involved in coal, C-O-A-L, coal mining.
Mm-hmm.
So what their strategy was behind either, I don't know, maybe to pressure Poland into going along with the Paris Agreement and the rule book. So COP24, this latest conference, which was December 4th or 3rd through December 15th of 2018, was all about creating the rule book for the Paris Agreement. So you may hear of it called the rule book. And what's the rule book? It's something like 130 different rules that human beings must abide by in order to save planet Earth from being uninhabitable, not my words, uninhabitable and unrecognizable in less than 12 years, Hal. I mean, we had
12
10
years.
and the 10 years passed, and we had 20 and the 20 years passed, and now we're, oh my gosh, you must act right now, people. You must get out of your cars right now, sell your single-family homes, live in high-rise where you walk, bike, and take public transportation, and you must be carbon-free, fossil-free right now, because if you don't, human beings, life on Earth will be unrecognizable and uninhabitable for all of us.
These chicken littles have been screaming this. Now, there are some true believers that actually buy into this foolishness, but I'm of the opinion that some of these global masters of the world, so to speak, must sit back in their little private meeting rooms and get the biggest laugh out of the gullibility of the average person, especially here in the United States with all these people with their little recyclable shopping bags. I'm saving the planet. And they're running around, and they're so pleased, oppress us even more, raise the price of gasoline. I'm a horrible person. and we're going to have a carbon-free, a carbon-neutral building in Boston. The only way to have a carbon-neutral anything is to not do anything and drop dead. That's about it, right?
That's right. Well, the interesting thing is we go carbon-free. Your bones are carbon, people. Your teeth are carbon. Everything is carbon. And I've probably said this on your show before, Hal. The three things that the United Nations is going after are greenhouse, the greenhouse gases, methane, livestock, livestock are methane. And right now, if you are listening to this radio show, you're on a computer, you're using a smartphone, you are using livestock byproduct. If you're eating an apple, you are using livestock byproduct. Why do I say that? Because the way that apple got to that vegan grocery store, if you will, is via a truck, a train, an airplane, however. And livestock is used to create asphalt. Livestock is used to create tires. Livestock is used to create the lubricants that make automobiles and bicycles go round. So, there is nothing that human beings use that is sans livestock byproducts. So the other two products that they're going after are fossil fuel. How plastic, right? We keep hearing how horrible plastic is. Okay, so whose pacemaker do we take away or do we not build, which is made of plastic, or all the hospital products, the gear, the hospital equipment that saves lives every second of the day? Which hospital products do we get rid of when we go fossil free? And then the other is carbon. So they want to go fossil. So these are the things that keep attacking carbon, fossil fuels, and petroleum. Everything we touch is made with those three ingredients. Everything we touch is impacted, has gotten to us by those three products. So isn't it interesting how that the United Nations and Al Gore and these climate change, global warming alarmists go after the three ingredients that is mostly remarkably in everything we use?
Well, it's fascinating where, for example, the city of Boston just enacted this ridiculous ordinance, plastic bags, but then they force the businesses to charge an extra 5 cents if you want a paper bag, which isn't paper made out of trees, and isn't that a bad thing? But no, plastic bag is the enemy. And I just ran an errand, and I used to be able to walk to the supermarket, get these nice little plastic bags, recycle them for trash liners or my wife's daycare business for whatever. Now, and I used to walk back, I'm just a 5-minute walk, but now I'm driving because I have to. And they just stopped putting them in free paper bags now. So I said I'm not buying government mandated bags. So now I'm driving down, and I'm putting a big hole in the ozone because now I'm driving my car instead of walking. And it's like everything they do has a negative impact on they're not helping anything, but we all feel good about ourselves. And of course, the bags, these recyclable bags, are made in communist China, communist Vietnam with slave labor, and they're not all that environmental friendly. But I want to get back to the conference. Now, you were there. You've been to a number of these UN conferences. I don't know how you can stomach being there. You were there, for the whole time, or a week, 7 days?
Oh, not for 5. We were there solid. We being Alex Newman, who you know very well.
Yes,
New
Alex
American
has been a guest.
Magazine. What a sweet, sweet soul that man is, and just so bright. So Alex and I were there from around, I can't remember how, but 5 days, and we left, so I guess around the 10th through the 15th. And we get to the conference about, 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, and we wouldn't leave till after 11 p.m. at night.
Wow.
So for 5 days solid. One evening, we did escape earlier, and we joined CFACT, Craig Rucker, the famous Mark Morano of Climate Depot, and a guy named Adam Hauser, great guys, as they were doing an off-site event, as CFACT often does during a United Nations conference. And, it's kind of like, okay, here's the other side, which is quite interesting that we get made fun of and we get called climate deniers. Hal, if they are so, what word am I looking? If they're so right, and they know they're so right, you would think that they would say, yeah, let's debate. Let's have a debate. Let's have a huge debate, because that's
what are they afraid of? Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
But no, they steer clear, and then they have to do, the Saul Alinsky trick, which is, make fun of of your enemy and bring them down and name call and all of that, which is quite pathetic. It really is pathetic. These people are not, when it comes to protecting their climate change, global warming, they become pathetic, and they name callers, and listen to me as I call them names, but they can't handle it. They cannot handle it. They can't handle the truth. That's the bottom line.
Well, I attended a couple of conferences as a New American journalist. I was a journalist. I just had the New American credentials. But I was doing a lot of video interviewing people, and 2 years in a row in New York City, and was put on by the Harlan Institute, and they had an open invitation to any of these left-wing scientists who believe in this stuff. Hey, come and debate us, please. We welcome you. And the best they had is a couple of greenies outside the hotel there in Midtown Manhattan with little, pass. And they said, come on in. Come on, let's talk. No, we don't want to come in. We can't talk. And I remember having the privilege of meeting at that time, the president of the European Union, Václav Klaus. And he said Al Gore won't even be in the same room with him. He'll walk out of the room. It was interesting. There was a young lady in line. He had a book that where everybody was giving away, that we're giving a copy of his book, and he was signing the books. And this lady was so excited. He's my president. He was from the Czech Republic, and I said, I wish he were mine, except because the Constitution, being foreign-born, won't allow it. But I would prefer him over Obama at the time,
Yeah.
So, well, what was the most disturbing thing? You wrote an article that we just put up on the camp blog, campconstitution.net, about the using young children, basically brainwashing these young children as agents of change, which is what they do in all totalitarian countries, whether it be communist Stalinist Russia, Nazi Germany, or Maoist China. So talk a little bit about that if you could.
Yeah, what's that saying that Hitler used to, he who owns the youth gains the future?
Yes.
I have, as you said just a bit ago, been to quite a few conferences, a number of UN conferences, but hundreds of conferences in total. Thousands of hours I've spent researching everything from the Endangered Species Act, or attending conferences about, wildfires, or whatever it is, wolves being released on land use, all sorts of things, from USGS to USDA to United Nations and everywhere in between. And I can tell you, after attending hundreds of conferences, this conference, beyond any other, very much populated by younger people. And younger meaning including children who the Katowice choir, Katowice, Poland, Katowice is where the conference was held, the UN conference was held just recently. The Katowice choir was brought in, children's choir, to help a professional German singer sing a song about air and about how we won't have air to breathe. Meanwhile,
was this Debbie? Was this a secular choir? This wasn't a church choir, was it?
No, definitely not.
Okay.
Definitely not. It was just a children's choir from Katowice, so I don't know that exactly where from, but it was just sad how these children, while they were just doing the background for this German singer, at the same time was a video of climate, disasters. And, we're talking floods and whatever, anything under the sun to them these days is climate change and climate crisis, which Nancy Pelosi is now calling it climate crisis, and children. So the video was filled of children thinking that they have to save planet Earth, while this famous German activist singer was singing her song, and seriously, it was her show. It was her show. In fact, the next song, so they, and by the way, how they came in wearing painter's masks, like gas masks that you would put on.
Yes, right.
Those useless things that, don't really protect you from whatever air you're breathing, but, I'm sure they do some protection. So anyway, these kids are coming in, a total prop. And by the way, so you asked what was most disturbing. That was pretty darn disturbing. There were a couple things. That was one of them, that whole choir thing. Prior to the choir singing, this event was held at the Pacific Islands booth. And these booths are really big. They're not, like, imagine going to and I know you've been, so you understand what these things look like, but for those people who are listening who have never been to a UN conference or, an event where there's vendors and there's exhibitors, imagine exhibitors showcasing their best product or whatever. Mm-hmm. Well, at the United Nations, countries have their own exhibit space. In fact, I found out from the United States, which shared a exhibit space with the World Wildlife Fund, and We Are Still In movement, which is against Trump, and it was partially funded by the U.S. I don't know what segment, but they said it was some government organization. Anyway, their booth was $100,000. So imagine,
Wow.
You've got 190 some odd countries here attending. Not everybody did a booth, but let's say, there were 50 booths, which there are way more, and they're $100,000, and so that's what, $5 million. I don't know how much. I haven't taken Common Core math, so I think it's
Well,
$5
I
million.
go to we'll set up a table at a homeschool show, and if you do a workshop, it's the high end might be $350, $400 for a 10 by 10 for about 3 days, 2 or 3 days. I attended. You do a county fair for 10 days, and it might be $1,000, $1,500. So this is 10 times what you would normally pay. And how many people were on hand?
Well, 32,000 were at this conference, but and many of them youth. Yeah, but these exhibit spaces, I mean, they are full on decked out. They've got the latest video equipment. They've got these guys are hypocrites. Bottom line, they're hypocrites. They've got leather couches. Some of them are set up for panel discussion, like the United States World Wildlife Fund. It was like going inside the building. They had their own little building, and you could see there was a big glass wall. You could see that people were sitting in about 30 chairs, and they were discussing a panel, watching a panel discussion or watching a movie or whatever. So there were all these different booths. Some of these booths had, they were just like exhibit space where it's virtual reality, and the virtual reality is you're riding a bike and you're watching, through this virtual reality forest. So all sorts of different things. And the Fiji Island, the Pacific Islands, had a very popular booth. They were constantly, at 5 o'clock, out came the alcohol, out came all the food. And this is where the children's choir, and this is where the children's choir also sang. But prior to, and you asked, what was the most disturbing, this was one of the most disturbing things. Prior to the kids singing, which was quite disturbing, the song that they were singing to, the Fiji Islands, and I recorded this whole thing on my cell phone so I could tell you how long it was, for over 7 minutes, while the children sat on the ground, we're saying how the Pacific Islands in less than 12 years are going to be underwater. That is a flat-out lie. It's a flat-out lie. So here these kids are, hearing with their mouths open going, oh, my gosh, as these Fiji bureaucrats were saying, if you kids don't act and get your parents to act, we are gone, the whole community. I mean, that to me is disgusting, disturbing, repulsive. And
you see, it's an out-of-the-way island that it's hard for. Oh my goodness, that's terrible. I'm sure if we took a trip to this island and spoke to some real people who lived on the island and say, okay, where's the high tide line? Where's the low tide line? Where's been the is it 8 inches in 150 years? Is that how much it's risen? That's what I'm understanding. That's not a whole lot. And as our friend Willie Soon says, if you can't step back 8 inches, 1 foot, then you deserve to die.
Well, and some of the latest reports that I've been reading are, which this totally makes sense. Some land just sinks. I mean, I could tell you on my parents' ranch, there are areas where the land has sunk, and we're not surrounded by water. We're not surrounded by water except for rivers, but that just under the plate tectonics and metamorphosis and all the things that happen naturally that have nothing to do with human beings, thermal,
That's
all
right.
of that. Stuff happens. And
well,
so,
I live on the ocean. I live in Boston, and the ocean is probably about 8, 9, 10. In fact, I was at a Massachusetts Archives, which is right on the ocean, in Boston Harbor, and I haven't seen any. It's hard to even see any measurable change whatsoever. And you get to Castle Island, and where I used to fish a lot as a young guy, and that pier that I used to fish on, I don't see it a high tide. I don't see it being covered. Yet you go to the Boston New England Aquarium and you see these little signs, about climate change or sea levels rising. Well, if that's the case, wouldn't it be true that the oceanfront property wouldn't it go down dramatically all over the country, all over the world?
You would think, but somehow they just have their pet projects. Like, I've been to Al Gore's mansion in Santa Barbara, and some people report it as, oh, it's on the ocean. It's on the ocean, but it's not. I mean, it's quite a ways from the ocean. Oprah Winfrey's mansion is closer to the ocean than Al Gore's, but he definitely, overlooks the ocean. And if there was sea rise, which they say, maybe there's no way you could see it with your naked eye. And yes, the seas have risen, and yes, they've decreased. That's just what happens over time is that you've got your sea rises and your sea declines, however you want to say that. But the numbers that I've heard, and who knows, the numbers, these are all projected. These are all projected, computer model projected, is maybe 3 inches by the year 2100. Maybe, if that's if that's even accurate. So 3 inches. Imagine 3 inches. What island is going to go under with 3 inches of sea rise?
A very small one, I would gather. I would imagine.
And that's worst case scenario. My goodness. So yeah, their facts are all over the place. They can't stand by them. They can't stand behind them. And so what they do is they get these young kids just to preach. I hope you don't mind the background noise here, but get the kids to preach about climate change, and if we don't, and we've ruined their earth. And so that was pretty disturbing to have young people, and we're talking hundreds, blocking the hallways and then saying things like, and clearly American too, many Americans saying things, chanting about keep it in the ground, shame on you. And also the other big thing that they were talking about is how we have stolen their land. So they call it stolen land. And in partnership with the so-called indigenous people. And I say so-called, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but, I've heard Indians call themselves Indians, and we're talking Native American. Native American, my people, the people, whatever tribes, they just give themselves the complete pass to be anything and everything they want. And then, for the people who stole their land, shame on you, you should be ashamed. And, to me, it just seems that these kids.
Shame is a Judeo-Christian concept. There are these pagan cultures that when they conquered an area, you took the woman and killed the men, and that was what was expected. There was no sense of guilt and shame. And in the United States, the United States government has done some injustices to the Indians, no denying that. But here in New England, the first Great War, it was called the King Philip's War. It was an Indian chief who his father had a 40-year peace treaty. They wanted English names, and they wanted to be under English law because it was just. But they decided to wipe out all of the settlers and wipe out all of the Christian Indians, and they didn't succeed. I don't see any day of protest when that comes around, like they've done something wrong. Indian tribes fought other Indian tribes, and of course in Mexico, the Aztecs would all their fellow Indians that they captured, they would brutalize and rip out their hearts and all kinds of horrible things like that. And so thankfully they're not doing that stuff anymore. But the average person doesn't know that, and they weren't so environmental friendly either. They would exhaust the soil, and they would go to the next, travel further upstream or wherever, further inland where their land was a little more productive. So that's a big myth about this indigenous peoples, and the evil white people came and did all these things. So I mean that's just unfortunately that's man's fallen nature. I mean you could look at any civilization and how they advanced and how they conquered or were conquered and so forth. So
yeah, well, and this will especially because Camp Constitution is getting seems like quite the attention from some radical groups, including I believe the Southern Poverty Law Center. Is that correct, Hal?
Yeah, we've been mentioned there a few times. They actually know about the fact that I change of position and I'm doing this full time now. But there was a Canadian organization, a left-wing group, that referred to Willie Soon, Professor Soon, and Lord Monckton as notorious climate deniers. Now, I hope you are now at that level of notorious, because that to me is it's like getting a 2-star general becoming a 5-star general. You're not just a climate denier, but you are a notorious climate denier. That's really a status symbol, I think.
Well, I don't know if I'm there yet, but I do know that the Southern Poverty Law Center has named me as an anti-Indian bigot because I said in one of my speeches going back to the Indians, Hal, and I truly mean this, Who did they want? Who did the Indians, the Native Americans, the people, whatever they're, whatever they want to call themselves? I don't care. I really, truly do not care. Call yourself whatever you want for whatever time of day it is. But they got the founding fathers. They got the founding fathers who now, and now you look at what their president's like. They've got a gorgeous president. It's just they're full of opportunity if they take advantage of it. And yeah, there were in all cultures, there was some sacrifices. There were, some murders. There was, even in current cultures now, we hear about murder happening all the time from all different sectors of the population.
That's right.
But you've got the founding fathers, coming here and conquering the United States, if you will. Who do you want? Who did you want? Mao? Hitler? Because if the U.S., if the founding fathers didn't, claim this as their territory or a territory for future generations under freedom and liberty, someone else would have. And I bet you we would all be enslaved to this day. Now, I don't know that, but given the odds of all the countries around the world but for the United States, seriously. So I'm sorry. I think we should be saying, you know what, thankfully, we ended up here as Native Americans, and we could have ended up with, some Nazi communist dictator like Hitler wanting this land. But no, we got the founding fathers.
Well, Genghis Khan, maybe, right?
Yeah, exactly, or Genghis Khan. Yeah.
So, we get about 2 minutes left.
That statement's going to get me in trouble, Hal, again. But that's okay, because maybe I'll end up on the notorious list.
Well, something to me, the worst thing is to be ignored. It's like when I started doing you've done hundreds of Agenda 21 presentations. The local media will ignore you. And then when they start attacking you and mocking you, then you made an impact. Now, we had some nitwit from the Esquire magazine come to a presentation I gave about 5 years ago. He wrote the article before he even got there, and it was just so obvious. And I had a Southern Poverty Law Center guy come to an event, and so when they're coming to the events that they're taking notice. Well, we have 1 whole minute left. So where can the millions of listeners all over the world get a hold of you, or learn more about what you're doing?
Well, the best way the best place to go is technocracy.news, technocracy.news. That is a website. And you go to the About page, and you'll see my bio, and you can get a hold of me there. That, by the way, is a great website from our friend Patrick Wood, who's the leading expert on technocracy. And we're seeing more and more. Technocracy was a Jeopardy question a couple weeks ago. Can you imagine? We've been screaming about that, just like we've been screaming about Agenda 21 for years and years and years. And look, lo and behold, Hal, it's here. It's here, like Technocracy. Yeah, so go to technocracy.news. Sign up for Pat's, updates all the time, and join us for Camp Constitution in 2019.
That's right. And if you go to our YouTube channel, you can go to our playlist, and we have a Debbie Bacigalupi playlist, and this interview will be put up there probably within the next several days. And her incredible presentation she gave at camp last year, 2018, is up there, and I encourage you to share it far and wide. Well, Debbie, may you and yours have a very happy New Year, and looking forward to seeing you hopefully before July 28th, but at least on July 28th at our camp.
That'd be great. And I'm going to be toting my plastic bags like I was. I wish I had time to tell my paper bag story in Boston and going around and telling people about, California, where I live. We already have plastic bags and what's coming your way. And lo and behold, Hal, while I was there right before Camp Constitution, it was pouring down rain. And I was carrying my brand new, all my wet clothes in a paper bag because I had to buy a rain jacket. And walking back to my hotel, the whole paper bag fell apart. And that's what you get with paper bags, Boston. That's what you get with paper bags.
All right, Debbie, God bless, and thank you for listening. You've been listening to the Camp Constitution Radio with your host, Hal Shurtleff. And until next week, may God bless you.